Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts, like the one behind me, which is for Rivian, ticker symbol RIVN. And part of the reason why this chart is so interesting is because earnings are coming up on, November 7th after hours. So that is Tuesday next week, November 7th. They will be releasing their earnings. And so, with that, it's good to kind of be prepared in considering the different levels that this might trade to, because it's quite possible there will be a lot of volatility around earnings. And so, in looking at this chart, I'm just going to throw up some lines that I've drawn. This blue box here represents a gap that was recently filled. I made a video on that. I believe I posted last week. And so, as you can see, that gap that's right there has been filled. And since filling that gap, the stock has traded down to around $16, which looks like it's come to two levels of support. One being this horizontal line that's right around $15.67. You can see that it initially served as support earlier this year at the beginning of the year in January, and then once it broke through in March, it later tested that level at that time as resistance, tapping it in April, May, late May, and then also late June before breaking through late June, and now we're back at that line. Another level that's interesting is this trend line that I have here. You can see the two touch points that I have marked in blue there. And so we're also trading at that level. So it seems like there are two levels of support or potential support that thus far the stock has traded above. A couple other lines that I have drawn on here, basically forming a downward wedge. Which is one that has a touch point May 11th, 2022. And then there are also another couple serves as support in March of this year and again in April of 2023. And so I don't necessarily see that being an important line soon, but it's quite possible that if Rivian does break lower than these levels of support, it could go down to that trend line. I would imagine later, well into the future, but something to be considering. And then also I have this top part of the wedge that has a touch point in August of 2022, briefly broke above it in September of last year, and then again in July, late July of this year, and then touched again in early October. And now we're at the bottom of the wedge at this level of support. And so, it's really interesting. Where might this go as a result of earnings? It's quite possible that it could break through these levels of support and go down. It's also possible that these levels of support could hold and it would go up. So what are some levels that this might go to? And so one thing, if I zoom in a little bit, that stands out to me is it looks like there was a gap that was formed on October 5th. It's a pretty small gap, but right around here on, the low of October 4th was $21.58. So that is potentially a level that could be filled, although it's kind of high up there. And so I'm just going to draw this, and I'm going to change the color to blue. I like my rectangles to be blue. All right, so there's a gap up there that could be filled, but before getting to that, it looks like there's this level here that, around this area of $20.01. So that's a psychological level, $20, an even number. So that could serve as a target. Also, where this support was here, where there was this bounce, that could also serve as a level, which is right around $17.70. Very interestingly, when Rivian was moving up earlier this year in July, it gapped up to about that level and continued on. So that is the gap that we just recently filled. So that seems like a level that it might go to. It might stop at that level before turning around, or maybe forming a bull flag before continuing up more to this next level, possibly to filling this gap. So that's a possibility. And let's see. So, this could go maybe up like that. Quite possible, but I imagine it would stop along the way, maybe do some like stair steps before getting up there. But yeah, filling that gap where that trend line level of resistance is, that seems pretty interesting. But this is also very hopeful in that the stock price is just going to go up. So what are some potential downsides if this does break below the $16 level? And so there are a couple levels. One that doesn't really seem too significant is right around $13.66, just where that served as support here. What I find to be a little more compelling is this touch point here on that trend line, and that would be right around $13.30. If we zoom out a little bit, that does seem like it served as a little bit of support here. There was a gap down that skipped that level. So that could be a level that it would trade to. Another level is where this green candle is, that open. Let's see. That is right around 12.56. And I'm actually going to change the candle so I can see the direction. So yeah, that was the open for that day. Hollow candle means it's going up. And then another level. Oh, and I should point out what I find very interesting about this level around $12.50 is there was a touch point back here on March 20th. It bounced off that level before going up. So that seems like a really interesting direction level for the stock to bounce at. And then also this low of $11.68. That seems like, again, another level that it could go to. So with earnings coming up, there's definitely potential for upside, especially with this gap up here, but there's also risk of downside. Personally, for me, I am not holding any Rivian. I wish I was. I wish I had got in when it was around $12 a share, and so I'm kind of waiting on the sidelines. It's possible, depending on what happens over the next few days, it's possible I'd pick up a very, very, very small position just to kind of, see what happens with earnings. But for me personally, I would like to hold this for the long term. I'm really excited by this company, really excited for their future. And, I would like to get shares as cheap as possible. So whether it bounces up to, fill this gap or to one of these levels within the wedge as a result or following earnings, that would be great. But for me, I will probably be on the sidelines unless it breaks below this wedge to these other levels. And before I close this up, I'm going to delete some of these lines just because it gets a little too yellow, a little too cluttered. So I'm just going to delete those and zoom out a little bit. And so this, wedge that I have drawn here, I don't know that the bottom of it will ever be touched. I imagine it will. So, whether you're hoping to trade up to this gap fill or a bounce from earnings, it's possible that, in the future, this could be going lower than the $11.68 per share. And so that's just something to consider. But if it does come down to that level, you can see this trend line that I have drawn here with those touch points that, might serve as a helpful guide. But yeah, anyways, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like it. Let me know in the comments your thoughts and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully trading goes well around earnings. Take care.